The first thing you need to know about being betrayed is that it always happens on a Tuesday. At least mine did. I was hunched over my laptop at 11:47 p.m., debugging the payment gateway that would make my wife's company millions, when I heard her voice drifting from the bedroom. God, Jake, you make me feel alive again. Not like that pathetic loser in the next room. My fingers froze over the keyboard. Saddie's voice, breathy and satisfied, followed by a man's laugh I recognized immediately. Jake Morrison, her head of marketing. The same Jake who'd been coming to our house for strategy sessions every Tuesday for the past 3 months. I'm David Chen. Wait, scratch that. David Miller, 42 years old, lead developer, and apparently the biggest fool in Tech City. For 15 years, I'd been the invisible genius behind TechFlow Solutions, writing code while my wife Saddie played CEO and took all the credit. I'd built our company's core product from nothing, working 18-hour days in our garage while she schmoozing investors in her designer suits. The bedroom door was cracked open just enough for me to see Saddie's silhouette against the white sheets, her auburn hair spilled across the pillow. Jake's muscular frame was unmistakable. All those company gym sessions had paid off, apparently. When are you going to dump the burden? Jake's voice was smug, satisfied. The IPO's in 2 months. After that, you won't need his code anymore. Saddie laughed, that crystalline sound I used to love. David's too useful right now, but after we go public, I'll make sure he gets what he deserves. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma, our 19-year-old daughter, away at college. Dad, Mom says you're holding her back from her full potential. Maybe it's time you stepped aside and let successful people succeed. I stared at the message, feeling something cold and sharp settle in my chest. My own daughter, poisoned against me. Saddie had been busy. I closed my laptop quietly and walked to my home office, really just the converted garage where I'd built an empire for someone else. The walls were lined with servers, monitors, and the detritus of a life spent in service to ungrateful people. My old wrestling trophies from high school gathered dust on a shelf, relics of a time when I knew how to fight back. That's when I noticed the shared server folder labeled personal. Saddie had always been careless with digital security. I clicked it open, expecting vacation photos or tax documents. Instead, I found videos. Dozens of them. Saddie and Jake in her office, on the conference table, against the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Timestamps going back 6 months. My wife, the woman I'd built a life with, performing for the camera like a porn star while Jake filmed everything. The last video was from yesterday. Saddie, naked and flushed, looked directly into the camera and said, "This is what a real woman looks like when she's with a real man. Not some code monkey who thinks HTML is foreplay." I sat back in my chair, oddly calm. 15 years of marriage, and this is how it ended. Not with a conversation or even a fight, but with a folder full of intimate tapes on a server I'd built with my own hands. My phone rang. Saddie's contact photo filled the screen, a picture from our wedding day, both of us young and stupid and in love. "David, are you still working? You need to get some sleep." "Just finishing up," I said, my voice steady. "The payment system should be ready for beta testing tomorrow." "That's wonderful, honey. You're so dedicated. I don't know what I'd do without you." Through the thin walls, I could hear Jake's shower running in our master bathroom. "Saddie?" "Yes?" "I love you too." After I hung up, I opened my laptop and began typing. Not code this time, but an email to Harrison and Associates, the best divorce attorneys in the city. Then I opened another window and started documenting everything. File timestamps, server logs, financial records showing how my intellectual property had built our fortune. By morning, I'd compiled a dossier that would make the FBI proud. Every line of code I'd written, every patent filed in the company's name, every financial contribution I'd made. Saddie thought she was the CEO, but I was the company. Without me, TechFlow was just an empty office building and a bunch of marketing presentations. At 6 a.m., I heard Jake's car pull out of our driveway. Saddie appeared in the garage doorway 20 minutes later, wrapped in the silk robe I'd bought her for our anniversary. "You've been up all night again," she said, concern creasing her perfect features. "This can't be healthy." "I'm fine," I said, not looking up from my screen. "Just putting the finishing touches on something important." She walked over and placed her hand on my shoulder. Her touch, once electric, now felt like ice. What would I do without my brilliant husband? I finally looked at her, really looked. The woman I'd loved since college, who'd encouraged me to start the company, who'd stood by me through the lean years when we were eating ramen and coding until dawn. When had she become this stranger? When had love curdled into contempt? "I guess we'll find out," I said. Saddie frowned. "What do you mean?" I turned my laptop screen toward her. On it was the email I'd just sent to our company lawyer, copying the board of directors and our primary investors. The subject line read, "Intellectual Property Dispute and Hostile Work Environment Complaint." Saddie's face went white. "David, what did you do?" "I quit," I said, standing up and stretching muscles that had been hunched over keyboards for too many years. "Effective immediately, and I'm taking my code with me." "You can't do that. The IPO is built on my work that I own according to the pre-incorporation agreements we signed 15 years ago. You remember those, right? Back when you actually read the documents you were signing?" Saddie grabbed my arm. "David, please, we can work this out. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it." I gently removed her hand. "The only thing wrong is that I trusted people who didn't deserve it. But that's a problem I can solve." I walked past her toward the house, leaving her standing alone in the garage among the servers and cables that had built her empire. "Where are you going?" she called after me. "To get dressed," I said. "I have a meeting with my new lawyer in an hour." The law offices of Harrison and Associates occupied the top 3 floors of the Meridian building, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a commanding view of Tech City's skyline. I sat across from Margaret Harrison herself, a woman in her 50s with silver hair and the kind of sharp intelligence that made opposing counsel break out in cold sweats. "Mr. Miller," she said, reviewing the documents I'd brought, "this is quite comprehensive. You've essentially documented the entire intellectual foundation of TechFlow Solutions." 15 years of work, I said. Every algorithm, every database structure, every line of code that makes the company valuable, all created by me, all legally owned by me, under our original partnership agreement. Margaret nodded, making notes on her legal pad. "And you have proof of the hostile work environment?" I slid a USB drive across her mahogany desk. "Video evidence of my wife conducting an extramarital affair in the company offices, using company equipment, audio recordings of her and her paramour discussing plans to remove me from the company after the IPO, text messages from my daughter clearly influenced by my wife's campaign to isolate me from family support. This Jake Morrison, he's an employee? Head of marketing, hired 8 months ago. The affair started almost immediately." Margaret's expression remained professionally neutral, but I caught a flicker of distaste. "Mr. Miller, I have to ask, how did you obtain these recordings?" "The videos were stored on our company server, which I built and maintain. The audio recordings were made in my own home. The text messages were sent to my personal phone. Everything was obtained legally." "And your goal?" I leaned back in the leather chair, feeling calmer than I had in months. "I want my intellectual property back. I want my fair share of the company's value. And I want Saddie and her boyfriend to understand that actions have consequences. Divorce proceedings can be lengthy and expensive." "I'm not interested in a lengthy process," I interrupted. "I want this resolved quickly and publicly. Saddie's built her reputation on being a brilliant tech CEO. Let's see how that reputation holds up when everyone learns she's just been riding my coattails while screwing her employee in the conference room." Margaret made more notes. "I'll need a retainer of $50,000. I wrote the check without hesitation. 15 years of living below our means while building the company had left me with substantial personal savings that Saddie didn't even know about. My phone buzzed constantly during the meeting. Saddie, Jake, our company lawyer, even Emma calling from college. I ignored them all. "One more thing," I said as Margaret walked me to the door. "I want an injunction filed today preventing TechFlow from using any of my proprietary code. The beta launch is scheduled for next week." Margaret smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. "Mr. Miller, I think you and I are going to work very well together." I drove home through the morning traffic, past the glass towers and converted warehouses that made up Tech City's business district. My phone continued buzzing incessantly. Finally, I pulled over and listened to Saddie's voicemails. The first one was confused. "David, I don't understand what's happening. Please call me back." The second was angry. "You can't just quit. We have obligations, commitments. This is incredibly selfish." The third was panicked. "The lawyers are saying you own the code? That's impossible. We built this company together." The fourth was desperate. "Please, David, come home. We need to talk about this like adults." I deleted them all and drove to Murphy's Gym, a no-frills martial arts studio in the old warehouse district where I'd been training for the past 5 years. The owner, Sean Murphy, was a former Marine who'd opened the gym after 2 tours in Afghanistan. He took one look at my face and pointed toward the heavy bags. "Rough morning?" "You could say that." I spent an hour working out 15 years of frustration on the leather bag, my fists finding a rhythm that my mind couldn't. Jab, cross, hook. The basic combinations I'd learned to defend myself against the bullies in high school, refined over years of training with Sean and his crew of cops, firefighters and blue-collar guys who understood that sometimes life hits back. When I was done, Sean handed me a towel and a bottle of water. "Want to talk about it?" "My wife's been cheating on me with her employee. They think I'm some pathetic loser they can push around." Sean nodded thoughtfully. "What are you going to do about it?" "Destroy them," I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. "Good," Sean said. "Just remember, the best revenge is the kind that leaves you standing and them wondering what the hell just happened." I drove back to an empty house. Saddie's car was gone, probably at the office dealing with the crisis I'd created. I packed a bag with clothes and essentials, then loaded my personal computers and backup drives into my truck. If Saddie wanted to play hardball, she'd learn that I'd been building databases and security systems since before she knew what a server was. My phone rang. Emma, calling from college. "Dad, what the hell is wrong with you?" "Hello to you too, sweetheart. Mom's crying. She says you've lost your mind, that you're trying to destroy the company out of spite." "Is that what she told you?" "She says you're having some kind of midlife crisis, that you can't handle her success." I sat down on our living room couch, looking at the family photos on the mantel. Emma's graduation, our anniversary trip to Italy, Saddie and me at the company Christmas party, both of us smiling for the camera while she planned my professional execution. "Emma, do you remember when you were 12 and wanted to learn programming?" "What does that have to do with anything?" "You spent a summer with me in the garage, learning Python. You said you wanted to build apps like your dad. What happened to that?" "I grew up, Dad. I realized there are more important things than sitting in a dark room typing code." "Like what?" "Like being successful. Like building something that matters. Like what Mom's done with TechFlow." I closed my eyes. "Emma, TechFlow exists because of code I wrote. Every feature, every function, every piece of technology that makes the company valuable, I created it. That's not what Mom says." "I'm sure it isn't. Tell me, what exactly does your mother say I do at the company?" Emma was quiet for a moment. "She says you're technical support, that you help maintain systems that other people built." Technical support. 15 years of 18-hour days of revolutionary algorithms and breakthrough innovations reduced to technical support in my own daughter's mind. Emma, I want you to do something for me. Go to the TechFlow website and look at the patent filings. Look at the code repositories. Look at who's listed as the primary inventor on every piece of intellectual property the company owns. Dad, I don't have time for— Make time, I said, my voice harder than I'd ever used with her. Because your mother has been lying to you about who I am and what I've accomplished. And after today, the whole world is going to know the truth. I hung up and walked out to my truck. I had a meeting with a tech journalist who specialized in corporate exposés, and I had a story that would make her career. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the city as I drove toward downtown, leaving behind the suburban house where I'd wasted 15 years of my life believing that loyalty and love were enough. They weren't. But revenge? Revenge was something I could code. The coffee shop where I met Jessica Torres was the kind of place that served $12 lattes to startup founders who thought caffeine was a business strategy. Jessica was younger than I'd expected, maybe 30, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and the hungry look of a journalist who'd stumbled onto the story of a lifetime. "Mr. Miller," she said, shaking my hand with a grip that meant business. "I've been following TechFlow's IPO filing. Very impressive numbers." "Built on my code," I said, sliding a folder across the table. "Every line of it." Jessica opened the folder and whistled softly. "These are patent filings going back 15 years. Database architectures, payment processing algorithms, user interface innovations. You're listed as primary inventor on all of them. Saddie's name appears as co-inventor on some of the later patents, but if you look at the actual code comments and development logs, you'll see that her contributions were minimal, mostly suggestions about user experience." "And she's the CEO?" "She's good with people. I'm good with technology. It seemed like a natural division of labor until I discovered she was planning to push me out after the IPO. Jessica pulled out her phone and started recording. "Can you walk me through how TechFlow actually operates?" For the next hour, I explained the technical foundation of our company, the proprietary payment processing system that handled transactions faster and more securely than anything else on the market, the machine learning algorithms that predicted user behavior with 97% accuracy, the blockchain integration that had made us the darling of cryptocurrency investors. All of this, I said, pointing to the technical specifications, was designed and implemented by me. Saddie's team handles marketing, sales, and business development, important functions, but not the core technology that makes the company valuable. Jessica was taking notes frantically. "What triggered your decision to leave?" I pulled out my laptop and showed her the server logs, the video timestamps, the documented evidence of Saddie's affair with Jake Morrison. She was using company resources to conduct an extramarital relationship while planning to remove me from the company I built. That constitutes both a hostile work environment and a breach of fiduciary duty. "Have you confronted her about the affair?" "Not directly. I'm letting my lawyer handle the personal matters, but professionally, I've withdrawn my intellectual property from TechFlow's use. As of this morning, they can't legally deploy any of the systems I created." Jessica's eyes widened. "What does that mean for the IPO?" "Without my code, TechFlow is just a marketing company with some nice office furniture. The IPO is built on technology they can no longer use." My phone had been buzzing throughout our conversation. Saddie, Jake, our company lawyer, board members, investors. The word was spreading through Tech City's tight-knit community like wildfire. "Mr. Miller, this is going to be a huge story. Are you prepared for the fallout?" "I've been preparing for 15 years, I said. "I just didn't know it." After Jessica left, I drove to my new temporary office, a co-working space in the Arts District where I'd rented a private room. My old mentee, Tommy Tommy Williams, was waiting for me with coffee and a grin. Tommy had worked for TechFlow for 3 years before leaving to start his own consulting firm. He was 28, brilliant with code, and one of the few people who understood exactly what I'd built. "Boss," he said, using the nickname he'd given me when he was still learning Python, "the tech blogs are going crazy. TechFlow Meltdown is trending on Twitter." I sat down at my new workstation, 3 monitors, top-of-the-line hardware, and a view of the city that didn't include my wife's office building. "Show me." Tommy pulled up his laptop. The headlines were brutal. TechFlow CEO's husband quits, takes code with him. IPO in jeopardy as founder battles wife over intellectual property. The $500 million divorce, when startups split. "It gets better," Tommy said, scrolling through social media. "Someone leaked photos of Jake Morrison's car getting towed from your house at 6 a.m. The internet detectives are having a field day." My phone rang. Margaret Harrison. "David, we need to talk. Saddie's lawyer is requesting an emergency meeting." "What kind of meeting?" "The kind where they beg you not to destroy their client's life." "Schedule it for tomorrow morning. I want to see how desperate they are." I hung up and looked at Tommy. "How long would it take us to build a competing product?" Tommy grinned. "Using your algorithms as a foundation? 6 weeks, maybe 8. We'd need a small team, some startup capital." "I have the capital. What about the team?" "Half the developers at TechFlow have been calling me since the news broke. Turns out a lot of people weren't happy with the way Saddie's been running things." I opened my laptop and started typing. Not code this time, but a business plan. If Saddie wanted to play CEO, she'd learn what it felt like to compete against the person who'd built her empire. "Tommy, I want you to reach out to the best developers from TechFlow. Offer them 20% more than their current salary plus equity in a new company. We're going to build something that makes TechFlow look like a high school computer science project." "What are we calling this new company?" I thought about it for a moment, looking out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the evening darkness. "Phoenix Technologies," I said, "because sometimes you have to burn everything down before you can rise again." My phone buzzed with a text from Saddie. "David, please, come home. We can work this out. I love you." I deleted the message without responding. Love was what I'd felt for the woman who'd stood by me in our garage 15 years ago. What Saddie felt for me now was fear. Fear that her carefully constructed world was about to collapse. She was right to be afraid. I spent the evening coding, my fingers flying across the keyboard as I began building the foundation of Phoenix Technologies. Outside my window, Tech City hummed with the energy of ambition and innovation. Somewhere across town, Saddie was probably in crisis meetings with lawyers and board members, trying to figure out how to salvage her IPO. But I wasn't thinking about Saddie anymore. I was thinking about the future, a future where I didn't have to hide behind someone else's success, where my work would be recognized and rewarded, where people like Jake Morrison learned that there were consequences for underestimating the quiet guy in the corner. The code flowed like poetry, each line a small act of rebellion against 15 years of being taken for granted. By midnight, I had the basic framework for a payment processing system that would make TechFlow's technology look obsolete. Phoenix Technologies was going to change everything. The emergency meeting took place at Harrison & Associates conference room at 9 a.m. sharp. Saddie arrived with her lawyer, Robert Davis, and Jake Morrison, who looked like he hadn't slept in days. Saddie's usually perfect appearance was showing cracks. Her makeup couldn't quite hide the dark circles under her eyes, and her hands shook slightly as she arranged her papers. Margaret Harrison sat at the head of the table like a judge preparing to deliver a verdict. I took the seat directly across from Saddie, close enough to see the desperation in her green eyes. "Thank you all for coming," Margaret began. "Mr. Davis, I believe you requested this meeting?" Robert Davis was a corporate lawyer in his 60s, the kind of man who'd built his career on making problems disappear quietly. Today, he looked like he was facing a problem that wouldn't cooperate. "Ms. Harrison," My client is prepared to offer a generous settlement to resolve this dispute amicably. What kind of settlement? I asked. Saddie leaned forward. David, I'm prepared to give you 50% of the company, full partnership, your name on everything, recognition for all your contributions. 50% of nothing is still nothing, I replied. Without my code, TechFlow has no product to sell. Jake spoke for the first time. Look, David, we all know you're upset about personal matters, but this is business. You can't let your emotions destroy something we've all worked to build. I turned to look at him, really look at him for the first time since discovering the affair. Jake Morrison was everything I wasn't. Tall, athletic, with the kind of easy confidence that came from never being told no. His suit probably cost more than most people made in a month, and his smile was the practiced expression of someone who'd learned to charm his way through life. Jake, I said, my voice conversational, how much of TechFlow's code have you personally written? He shifted uncomfortably. I'm not a developer. I handle marketing and business development. Right. So when you say something we've all worked to build, you're referring to the marketing presentations and sales pitches you've created, not the actual technology that makes the company valuable. The technology is only valuable if people know about it, Jake shot back. Marketing is what turns code into revenue. Interesting perspective. Tell me, how's your marketing going to work when there's no product to market? Saddie interrupted. David, please. This isn't about Jake. This is about us, about our marriage, about the life we've built together. The life we built together ended when you decided to build a new one with him, I said, nodding toward Jake. In our office, on our conference table, using equipment I installed and maintained. Robert Davis cleared his throat. Mr. Miller, my client is prepared to increase the settlement offer, 60% of the company, plus a formal apology for any workplace improprieties. Margaret slid a document across the table. My client has a counteroffer. Saddie picked up the paper and read it, her face growing pale. This is everything. You want complete ownership of all intellectual property, full control of the technology division, and you want Jake fired? I want Jake gone, I confirmed. I want him blacklisted from every tech company in the city. I want his professional reputation destroyed the same way he helped destroy my marriage. Jake stood up abruptly. You can't do that. I have rights. You have the right to find a new job, I said calmly, preferably in another city. This is insane, Jake said, turning to Saddie. You can't let him do this to us. Us. The word hung in the air like a confession. Saddie closed her eyes. Jake, please. Let me handle this. Handle it? He's trying to destroy everything we've worked for. Everything you've worked for? I repeated. Jake, you've been employed at TechFlow for 8 months. I've been building this company for 15 years. Your contribution is a rounding error. Jake's face flushed red. You think you're so smart sitting in your little cave writing code, but you don't understand business. You don't understand what it takes to actually sell something, to make people want it. You're right, I said. I don't understand how to sell something, but I do understand how to build something worth selling, and I understand how to take it away. I pulled out my laptop and opened a browser window. Jake, have you checked the tech blogs this morning? His confident expression faltered. Because there's a fascinating article about TechFlow's marketing genius, who's been conducting an affair with his married boss while the company prepares for an IPO. The photos are quite revealing. Your car in my driveway, the two of you having dinner at restaurants around the city, security footage from the office building showing you leaving Saddie's office at very interesting hours. Saddie grabbed my arm. David, you can't publish that. It will destroy the company. The company is already destroyed, I said, gently removing her hand. I'm just making sure everyone understands why. Robert Davis was frantically taking notes. Mr. Miller, we can discuss confidentiality agreements, non-disclosure clauses. I'm not interested in staying quiet, I said. I'm interested in making sure the truth comes out. Margaret smiled coldly. My client is prepared to withdraw his intellectual property claims in exchange for several conditions. First, Ms. Miller resigns as CEO effective immediately. Second, Mr. Morrison is terminated and agrees never to work in the tech industry again. Third, Mr. Miller receives 75% ownership of TechFlow Solutions, with full control over all technical decisions. That's impossible, Robert Davis protested. The board will never agree to those terms. The board doesn't have a choice, I said. Without my code, TechFlow is worthless. The IPO will fail, the investors will sue, and everyone involved will be professionally ruined. My terms are the only thing standing between your clients and complete disaster. Saddie was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in dark streaks. David, please. I know I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work things out. Saddie, I said, my voice gentler than it had been all morning. We can't work this out. You chose Jake over me. You chose your ambition over our marriage. You chose to humiliate me in my own company. Those aren't mistakes, they're choices. And choices have consequences. Jake slammed his hand on the table. This is bullshit. You can't destroy people's lives because your feelings got hurt. I looked at him with genuine curiosity. Jake, do you think I'm destroying your life? Yes. Good, I said. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. The room fell silent, except for the sound of Saddie's quiet sobbing. Margaret checked her watch. Gentlemen, ladies, my client's offer expires at close of business today. After that, the intellectual property dispute goes to court, the affair becomes public record, and TechFlow's IPO becomes a cautionary tale about corporate governance. Robert Davis was whispering urgently in Saddie's ear. She nodded, wiped her eyes, and looked at me with something that might have been respect. I need to discuss this with the board, she said. You have 8 hours, I replied, standing up. Choose wisely. As we left the conference room, Saddie caught up with me in the hallway. David, wait. I stopped, but didn't turn around. I never meant for it to happen this way, she said. I never meant to hurt you. I know, I said. That's what makes it worse. You destroyed our marriage without even thinking about it. I was so unimportant to you that you didn't consider how your actions would affect me. That's not true. I love you. I finally turned to face her. Saddie, you love the idea of me. The loyal husband who builds your empire while you take the credit. The technical genius who solves your problems while you play CEO. But you've never loved me. The actual person, with feelings and ambitions and self-respect. I can change, she whispered. I don't want you to change, I said. I want you to live with the consequences of who you chose to be. I walked away, leaving her standing in the marble hallway of the law firm that was about to make me the richest and most vindicated man in Tech City. The TechFlow board meeting was scheduled for 6 p.m. in the company's main conference room, the same room where Saddie and Jake had filmed some of their more creative encounters. I arrived 15 minutes early with Margaret Harrison and Tommy Williams, who'd agreed to serve as Phoenix Technologies' chief technical officer. The board members were already seated around the polished oak table. Patricia Wong, our lead investor, Michael Stevens, the former Microsoft executive who'd joined us 2 years ago, David Park, the venture capitalist who'd funded our Series B round, and Jennifer Adams, the independent director who'd been pushing for better corporate governance. Saddie sat at the head of the table in her usual spot. But something had changed. The confident CEO persona had cracked, revealing the frightened woman underneath. Jake was nowhere to be seen. David, Patricia said as I took my seat, we need to understand exactly what's happening here. I opened my laptop and connected it to the room's presentation system. The first slide was simple. TechFlow Solutions, a technical analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, for the past 15 years, I've been the chief architect of every system that makes this company valuable. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what that means. The next slide showed TechFlow's patent portfolio, 47 patents, all listing me as the primary inventor. Then came the code repositories, the system architectures, the technical documentation that formed the backbone of our technology. This is our payment processing system, I said, clicking to a flowchart that looked like a work of art. It handles transactions 20% faster than our nearest competitor while maintaining bank-level security. I designed and implemented every component. Michael Stevens leaned forward. David, we all know you're our lead developer, but software development is a team effort. Is it? I clicked to the next slide, a detailed breakdown of code contributions over the past 5 years. This shows who wrote what. As you can see, 87% of our core functionality was written by me personally. Another 8% was written by developers I hired and trained. The remaining 5% is mostly user interface elements and marketing integration. Jennifer Adams was taking notes. What about Saddie's contributions? Saddie's primary contributions have been in business development, fundraising, and strategic planning, all important functions, but not the technical foundation that makes our IPO possible. I clicked to the next slide. Intellectual property ownership. According to our original partnership agreement, signed 15 years ago when we incorporated, I retain ownership of any technology I develop unless specifically transferred to the company in writing. I've never signed such a transfer. Patricia Wong's face had gone pale. David, are you saying you own our entire technology stack? I'm saying I own the intellectual property that makes TechFlow valuable. Without my code, you have a marketing company with no product to sell. Saddie finally spoke. David, you can't do this. You'll destroy everything we've built. Everything I've built, I corrected. You've built a reputation as a visionary CEO based on technology you didn't create and don't understand. I clicked to the final slide. Phoenix Technologies. This morning, I filed incorporation papers for a new company. Phoenix Technologies will offer payment processing services using next-generation algorithms that make TechFlow's current system obsolete. We've already secured initial funding and hired a development team. Michael Stevens was frantically typing on his phone. David, this is a clear violation of your non-compete agreement. My non-compete agreement was with TechFlow Solutions, I said. As of yesterday, I'm no longer a TechFlow employee, and since I own the intellectual property that TechFlow was built on, I'm free to use that technology however I choose. Margaret Harrison stood up. Ladies and gentlemen, my client has prepared a final offer to resolve this dispute. She handed out copies of a document I'd spent the previous evening crafting with the precision of a software architect designing a critical system. Mr. Miller is prepared to license his intellectual property to TechFlow Solutions under the following terms. He will receive 75% ownership of the company, effective immediately. Ms. Miller will resign as CEO and accept a consulting role focused on business development. The company will implement new corporate governance policies to prevent conflicts of interest. And Mr. Morrison will be terminated immediately with no severance package. Patricia Wong was reading the document with the expression of someone watching her investment evaporate. David, this is essentially a hostile takeover. It's a correction, I said. For 15 years, I've been content to work behind the scenes while Saddie took credit for my innovations. That arrangement is no longer acceptable. Jennifer Adams looked up from the contract. What happens if we reject these terms? Then I withdraw all licensing rights to my intellectual property, TechFlow's IPO fails, and Phoenix Technologies launches with superior technology and half of your development team. The room fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. Saddie was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before, not anger or sadness, but something like awe. You planned this, she said quietly. All of it. The timing, the evidence, the new company. You've been planning this for months. I've been documenting everything for years, I admitted. I just never thought I'd need to use it. But when I discovered your affair with Jake, when I realized you were planning to push me out after the IPO, when my own daughter told me I should step aside and let successful people succeed, that's when I decided it was time to stop being the invisible genius behind someone else's success. David Park, who'd been quiet throughout the meeting, finally spoke. David, from a purely business perspective, this makes sense. You are the company's primary asset. But the personal animosity between you and Saddie is going to make this arrangement impossible. There's no personal animosity, I said. This is purely business. Saddie made business decisions, conducting an affair with an employee, planning to remove the company's founder, creating a hostile work environment. I'm making business decisions in response. Patricia Wong was calculating numbers on her phone. If we accept these terms, what happens to the IPO? The IPO proceeds as scheduled, I said. Phoenix Technologies will be folded into TechFlow as a subsidiary, bringing next-generation technology that will make our market position unassailable. Our valuation will likely increase. And if we reject your terms? Then you'll be trying to take a marketing company public while I'm launching a superior product with better technology and lower overhead. Margaret Harrison checked her watch. Ladies and gentlemen, you have 30 minutes to make a decision. After that, my client's offer expires and Phoenix Technologies becomes TechFlow's primary competitor. The board members huddled together, whispering urgently, while Saddie sat alone at the head of the table, staring at her hands. Finally, Patricia Wong spoke. We need to vote. All in favor of accepting Mr. Miller's terms? 4 hands went up. Saddie abstained. Motion carries, Patricia said. David, congratulations. You're TechFlow's new majority owner and CEO. I stood up and shook hands with each board member, then walked over to Saddie. I'll need your office keys, I said gently. She pulled the keys from her purse and placed them in my palm. Her fingers were ice cold. David, she whispered, what happens to us now? Now you learn what it feels like to work for someone else, I said, just like I did for 15 years. I walked out of the conference room and down the hall to the corner office that had been Saddie's domain. The space was exactly as I'd expected. Minimalist furniture, abstract art, and a view of the city that had once seemed impossibly distant from my cluttered garage workshop. I sat down behind the mahogany desk and opened my laptop. The first email was from Jessica Torres, the tech journalist who'd broken the story. David, the story is going viral. TechFlow's stock is up 12% in after-hours trading. Investors love the idea of founder-led companies. You're going to be on the cover of Tech Weekly. Congratulations on the most spectacular corporate comeback in Silicon Valley history. I leaned back in the leather chair and looked out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the evening darkness. Somewhere out there, Jake Morrison was probably updating his LinkedIn profile, and Saddie was packing up her personal belongings. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Dad, I saw the news. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. Can we talk? I typed back, I'll be here when you're ready. Then I opened a new document and began typing the first lines of code for TechFlow 2.0, a system that would revolutionize online payments and establish my company as the undisputed leader in financial technology. For 15 years, I'd been the invisible genius behind someone else's success. Now I was going to find out what it felt like to be successful in my own name. The code flowed like music, each line a small victory against everyone who'd ever underestimated the quiet guy in the corner. Outside my window, Tech City hummed with the energy of ambition and innovation, and for the first time in my adult life, I was part of that energy instead of just serving it. Saddie had been right about one thing. I was going to destroy everything we'd built together, but what I was building in its place was going to be magnificent.